Jenny McCarthy Show. Oh!
Welcome back to the Jenny McCarthy Show. I'm Jenny McCarthy Wahlberg. Wow. My next guest, I can only imagine all you moms right now. I mean, hold your hearts because you can't even imagine. I don't want to imagine having to have anything like this ever happen. Catherine Oxenberg, welcome to my show.
Good morning, Jenny. Hi.
Thanks for joining us. The book that you just wrote, Captive, A Mother's Crusade to Save Her Daughter from a Terrifying Cult. This is a cult we've been talking about a lot on our show. Your daughter India joined the show. Joined the cult. How long ago?
2011. Actually, I brought her to her first class because it was called Executive Success Programs, and she was starting a business, and I thought it would give her a leg up in the business world. I had no idea what they were really about. No.
This is something I would have totally have done the same thing. I'm totally into starting businesses, very entrepreneur. Like, this is something I would be completely drawn to, like a Tony Robbins type of thing.
Exactly. Well, what most people don't know is a lot of these cults have these consumer-facing programs that are legitimate, that are offering benefits, or else they would never, ever be able to recruit people. And then once they suck you in and they, make you more sort of submissive and suggestible, then they steer you in a different direction and you become a recruiter for their own agenda and you don't have a life anymore.
So I don't want to bring up this question too soon, but I have to because I've suffered it with my own being a mom, but mom guilt. How have you faced that, dealt with it, healed it? Have you?
Yes, I have healed mom guilt. First of all, I reached out to experts and they said, stop blaming yourself, because I was blaming myself. And they said these cults are well-oiled machines and India never stood a chance. And then there is no predisposition to be suggestible for a cult. Everybody is suggestible at some point in their lives.
Yes.
And there are no preconditions. It has nothing to do with low self-esteem or lack of, strength of character or any type of weakness at all. It's luck of the draw.
And did India move to Albany to be closer to Keith and NXIVM?
I believe so, yes.
And did you ever meet Alison Mac?
I met her on a few occasions, and I never really had much to do with her. And I thought she was sort of vacuous, actually. It's not very nice to say, but I didn't have a good feeling from her. Yeah.
And did you ever meet Keith?
I did, for about 10 seconds in Albany, and it was a very anticlimactic moment. It's in my book.
Wow. And did you get the feeling right away of...
No, I didn't, but I did see, because it was on the volleyball court, all these women come up and kiss him on the lips, and my now ex said, oh, he's having sex with all these women. And I said, oh, don't be ridiculous. And I think he probably was right.
Of course, we don't want to see what possibly is truth in front of us. Now, when you sat down with India and tried to get her, through to her with an intervention, how difficult was it? Because we've had cult experts come on, I'm sure ones that you've talked to, that actually go and try to help get kids out of these cults, adults out of these cults. How was that experience?
Well, first of all, I did everything wrong. I used the brainwashing word, which you don't. I used the cult word, which you don't. So I hit a brick wall. And I thought I was going to be able to reason with her and get through to her, and I had no impact whatsoever. I was completely shocked.
I would be too.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I'm not allowed to call it brainwashing anymore, but just being under the influence of doctrine like that, it's a closed loop of logic, and you can't penetrate it.
No, I'm having a thing happen with my girlfriend who is in an abusive relationship, and I've used that word with her. I said, you understand he's brainwashed you, and he's like a cult leader, and I know he's just a boyfriend, but do you notice how all of your circle of friends he has closed you off of? You're not allowed to talk to us anymore? Like, that's a cult. And sure I'm using the wrong words with her because it's not like it worked.
It's exactly the same dynamic, exactly, as an abusive relationship.
It's unbelievable. So then how are things now? Where are you in this process?
Well, a lot has happened since I started trying to expose this group. The leader is in jail, and he hasn't gotten bail. He is facing life in prison on sex trafficking charges and others. There are superseding indictments, and five other women have been arrested and indicted. Amongst them is Claire Bronfman, who's been one of the women who's bankrolled this entire organization to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, trying to silence critics. It's a criminal enterprise. So we've come a long way. I would say the group is no longer recruiting, and India is no longer involved.
The group still exists, though?
Not really. I mean, they've all been arrested.
So there's no followers still meeting up, trying to continue their whatever it is.
I would say
ideology.
Well, possibly in Mexico, and that's where I was threatened. There's an arm. The Mexican arm is run by the son of the ex-president Carlos Salinas. His name is Emiliano Salinas, and they're so afraid of coming forward because his dad is probably the most feared man in Mexico. And I've received threat letters, accusing me of extortion and fraud, trying to put me in jail. I can't go to Mexico. I've been told that I'll be killed.
I mean, it's got to be terrifying, not only in Mexico, but when you were doing this, it had to be scary.
Yeah,
I'm sure they wanted to stop you then.
Oh, yeah. I didn't sleep for almost a year.
What is your relationship now with India?
Very good. Healing very, very fast. And she's said that I'm allowed to be her spokesperson. This book is very, very challenging for her because I'm exposing her on so many levels. And being estranged from her was hell for me. So as her spokesperson, she's scripted something for me that I'm allowed to say, and I'm not allowed to deviate from it. So if you want me to read it, I can.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is what I'm allowed to say.
Okay.
India is moving on with her life. It's a complex situation, but she understands her mom's struggle and the people involved. She's doing really well, and I'm impressed how she's handling it all. Right now, she would like privacy, and she will share her side of the story in the near future. So that's how she's doing, and she is doing. She's a strong, intelligent, beautiful young woman.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
You know, so many times there's not good endings, and I'm so grateful that you have your baby back.
Thank you.
I mean, I still call them babies.
I know. She'll always be my baby. And the irony is, if that intervention had worked and I had walked away with her arm in arm, this group would still be up and running, and Keith Raniere would still be recruiting women for sex and branding them with his initials. So it's a strange twist of irony that, in a way, India's stubbornness led to the undoing of this cult.
Thanks to you.
In part, yes.
I mean, you have to feel that. I mean, I'm glad you see the irony in that, because I have to see some irony in my own journey of why certain things happen. And I guess that's just, our child's journey and then our journey because of it. Have other mothers reached out to you? I would imagine.
Some, surprisingly few.
Why do you think?
I don't know. And most of them felt completely powerless to do anything.
Wow. I would go to the ends of the earth, but I can't judge any other mother.
I can't judge anybody either. I really can't. I just knew this is what I had to do, and I would be willing to sacrifice my life to rescue her.
Was your daughter branded?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's why I lost it.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. When I was reading about it, I was in shock, and we've had other people on the show talk about it, that I can't believe it's happening today. Like, there was that cult that was happening in the 60s or 70s, rather, that we just had on, I forgot, the ashram group, and...
Wait, you talking about Rajneesh?
Yes,
yeah.
yes. I can't pronounce anybody's name. But I was just reading about that and going like, okay, I could see the hippies and the sex and the drugs, and that was that back then. And to have something happening now, this means everyone needs to really keep your eyes and ears open. Don't take anything for face value.
Yeah.
Any type of, what would you say, empowering business classes, groups.
Run away. Run. Yes. Just accept you're fine the way you are. The answers are within.
The interesting thing is, the courses that they were talking about were, sound like, girls that want to be bosses, like strong-willed women. I wonder why he would draw in those type of girls versus Scientology kind of went after the kids on the street in Hollywood that didn't necessarily have a family.
I don't have an answer for you, except most of those women had been indoctrinated over a period of time in classes where they were taught to idolize him as the vanguard. So by the time they met him, they idolized him. So these are not women that were recruited off the streets to be branded or to be part of this, secret sorority. They had been through a process that spanned, as far as India, she was in the group for 6 years, I think, almost, before she was recruited into this sort of secret group. To the point where whatever he said, they would believe. And people don't understand that. It's very devious and insidious how this process works.
Especially when you just told me that. I mean, it was 6 years before she was brought into the deep
inner circle.
Yeah.
Mm.
Are you going to continue to talk about cults or continue down this path of spreading the word, or do you feel like this chapter is done after this book is done?
I'm not sure. I mean, when I first reunited with India, she said, "Mom, could you please stop manipulating everything behind the scenes? Could you just go do something else, something fun? Could you get a life?" And I said, "I'm really trying. So let's see if I take her advice. Or, I don't know what life has in store for me if I'm going to be helping other families in similar situations. I don't know at this point."
It's a good answer. I'm in shock with how many parents that I've heard, read, talked to that have children that are in the same situation. If they're listening, what can you offer them right now besides reading your book?
Well, there are warning signs to pay attention to that I didn't know how dangerous they were. So it's this loaded language where your kid starts to speak in sort of jargon or weird terminology. It's doctrine that they start to adhere to, where they have all the answers. It's a sense of superiority, possibly charismatic leader, and they start to withdraw from their life and their family and friends, and they start recruiting fanatically. So all of those are warning signs. I mean, the one thing that my child said to everybody, and most everybody believed her, was that she was great and she was happy doing what she was doing. If your gut tells you that your child is in danger, listen to your gut. Don't give up on your child. She was too precious to let that be her life. I had to intervene.
Is there a period of time where you lost contact with her and didn't speak to her at all?
Yeah, so I did an intervention last year, May 30th, and then there was no contact except a couple of angry texts from her. I didn't get to see her beautiful face until February 13th. And then that was to try to get me to stop writing the book. And then I didn't see her again until mid-June. So this has been a very painful, lengthy process.
Oh my God, I can only imagine. My heart is like breaking for you every second I'm talking to you because any mom would know, I mean, you're the daughter of a princess. Did you ever think that you would have to be fighting for a cult, for possession for your daughter? I mean, it's kind of crazy.
No, I never, ever. This is definitely not a fight I chose.
No, we don't, do we?
No, we don't.
God, I'm so glad to hear that he's going to be getting life.
Yeah.
That's not enough torture for me, though.
Well, he's in the sex offenders unit, so he's right where he belongs.
Wow. I mean, did you, what kind of threats were you getting? Were you getting legal threats from this group or just kind of, death threats?
I got some death threats. And I got legal threats, but from state attorney generals in Mexico, accusations of extortion, fraud, that if I went to Mexico, I'd be imprisoned. Friends of mine who were Mexican said, "You'll get shot." I mean, and they had my address. I was afraid that some cartel member was going to come and shoot me in the middle of the night. And people who have left this cult 20 years ago still fear for their lives. It's awful.
How big was this worldwide? How many countries?
Well, I don't know everywhere that they had,
Recruiting.
yeah, but definitely Canada and Mexico, they had a big presence. I think they say that 16,000 people went through their trainings. Maybe the group at its most had a core membership of 800 to 900 people, but what experts say is that it's these small groups that are the most deadly because they're tightly wound around a leader, and the more psychotic the leader becomes, the greater risk of suicide because they'll do whatever he says. So I was afraid that she would be asked to commit suicide. And in a weird way, Alison Mac has committed suicide because she's taken the fall for him. Where everybody knows that he started this secret group, DOS, she said in the New York Times Magazine, no, I started this group. Well, what's so sad, and I think this is as a result of being brainwashed, is that instead of her being able to think critically, she can't think clearly. And she thinks that by doing this and taking the fall, that she'll exonerate him. But all it will do is make her be a co-conspirator, and she's going to go to jail as well. And it's tragic.
It is tragic.
She's thrown away her life for nothing.
You're 100% right. Even though she's admitted that, could her lawyers find professionals to say, can't you see she's been, brainwashed? Sorry to use that word.
Well, Jenny, I was in court when the prosecution said they had been waiting for her lawyers to reach out to them for plea negotiations, and they'd heard nothing. And what this means, this is conjecture, but you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out what they're doing. The defense has a pool, and I believe it's paid by Claire Bronfman. And so they have to toe the line. She can't, if they're going to pay for her legal fees, she can't really denounce him.
Right.
So I don't know
right.
what her recourse is at this
You're
point.
right. And there's definitely sins to be paid for. I will say that. I don't know about a life sentence, but something.
She's facing two charges that are 15 years to life and another for 20 years. So sad.
How do you think he got other women to enslave other women?
Because he's a psychopath.
Yeah.
And that's his gig, is all about control and his, sexual needs.
I mean, Catherine, I got to tell you, I could see myself in my 20s being totally sucked into this. That's how close it is to being a real thing for a lot of people. And I'm saying that because I don't want people to think, oh, that would never happen to me or never happen to my child. It did. And it can.
It can. And I'm glad you say that, because when people say, oh, it would never happen to me, it's actually a form of victim shaming. And if people were more informed about how these groups work, then they would understand how susceptible anybody can be. And I think that's a really important message.
It's the message.
Yeah.
I have the chills right now. Absolutely. It's true. I mean, this is why you wrote the book. This is why you fought for your daughter. And this book will hopefully wake up everyone so we can talk to our kids and not let this happen. I mean, that's why I feel like I've done, taken beatings for the kind of crusade that I've been on for my child. But I'm like, I don't want this to happen to other families. Yeah, I don't want anyone to have to go through what I went through.
That's exactly how I feel. It's exactly the motivation for writing my book.
Well, thank you for writing it. And let me promote it again. Captive, a mother's crusade to save her daughter from a terrifying cult. Thank you, Catherine. And give my love to your daughter, will you?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you for being so brave. We'll be right back,
Thank
guys.
you.
Jenny McCarthy Show. Oh!